In this video, I'm going to discuss how to open an image from Lightroom into Photoshop and also how to apply a texture effect in Photoshop with a separate image. So I've decided to go ahead and use this black and white image to apply a texture to within Photoshop. So to open it, I'm going to go up to Photo on the menu, choose Edit In, and edit in Adobe Photoshop. It's going to ask me if I prefer to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments, edit a copy, or edit the original file. Since I want the black and white effects on the image, I'm going to choose to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments and choose Edit. That will launch Photoshop if it's not already open, or simply bring the image into Photoshop. Make it a bit larger. Now for the texture, I went ahead and searched stained paper in Google, and I found this really great website called lostandtaken.com. They have all of these stained paper downloads. If you are using a texture to composite or combine with your images from a found source, I'll ask, for the purposes of this course anyway, that you don't use anything recognizable. For instance, this first texture here with the big blue splotches and the first one in the second row would have very recognizable elements. This image here with the big brown stain would also be very recognizable. So something that's really not identifiable as somebody else's work, you're also free to use your own photographed textures. It can be something like concrete. Anything that has an interesting texture can work well. I'm actually going to place a folder in the resources area of the course with these stained papers. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose one that I like. I like this one for the color, and the darkness around the edges frames it just slightly. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that open into Photoshop as well. It's on a separate file now, but I can still see the other file here. So the easiest way I recommend to get both images onto the same Photoshop file is to simply select the image and then put it on the clipboard, paste it onto the other file. So here I'm just going to go up to Select All. It would be Command A on a Mac or Control A on a Windows. The image is selected. Now I'm going to go ahead and edit Copy, which would be Command C on a Mac or Control C on a Windows. I'm going to head over to the other file of the black and white image and Command V on a Mac to edit paste, or Control V on a Windows. Now, while these stained paper textures are fairly high resolution, it's not quite as big as this particular image. So what I'm going to do first is transform it. While generally for your photographs in particular, I don't recommend transforming to enlarge images, in this case, since it's a texture, the part it's going to play is minimal in the image. It doesn't need especially a lot of detail, and it's only a small amount in this case. So I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Free Transform. Okay. That would be Command T on a Mac, Control T on a Windows, and here I'll just go ahead and stretch the corners pretty much to the edges of the image, maybe a little beyond, so that I know that it covers the whole thing. Right? And I'm going to press enter. It's transforming that texture layer. Okay. So now I've essentially covered up the background image. Here's my layers palette within Photoshop. And I want the original layer to show through. So I can try different things. The most straightforward might be just lowering opacity so that some of the texture shows and some of the original image shows. I'm going to go ahead though and leave the opacity at 100% for now and just try some of the different blending modes. At the top of the layers palette in Photoshop, the default is normal as far as the blending mode. I'm going to try dissolve. Didn't really do much there. Darken has kind of a neat effect. I really like the multiply effect. Just going to go through several of these different blending modes and see which one I prefer. So I want something that's not going to obscure the original image too much, but just add some interest with the texture. So far the multiply and overlay are the ones I find most successful. I like soft light as well. Hard light isn't bad. Vivid light is pretty interesting. That's pretty awful there. Anyway, I think it was between overlay for me and multiply. Multiply is a bit dark, so I'm going to go ahead with overlay. And at this point, now I can adjust the opacity a bit if I like as well. But I'm pretty happy with how it is now. Okay, and I would ask that at this stage, if you are completing the texture option, that you go ahead and take a screenshot in Photoshop showing the layers palette. So it should show both image thumbnails in the layers palette, also which blending mode and the opacity. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and take a screenshot. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and click on either File, Save here, or it would be Command S on a Mac, Control S on a Windows. So Command S. Down here at the bottom left, it's going to tell me how much is saved. Really quickly, it's saved 98%. Now it's done saving. When I navigate back to Lightroom, I should see a TIFF copy of the image. There it is. Okay. So this is now a TIFF file that's been saved into the original folder where the image was on the hard drive. TIFF files, by the way, tend to be very, very large files. And this is a layered file too, which adds to the size of the actual file. But nevertheless, here is my edited image with the texture overlaid in Photoshop. You could make additional adjustments in Lightroom if you desired. For instance, sometimes adding a texture might flatten out an image a bit and lessen contrast. I think in this case I'm very happy with exactly how it is, so I'm going to leave it at that.